Oops. So on Wednesday, you guys had solving quadratics using factoring. And that one's nice when they actually factor. We're going to do solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. This is my favorite because it always works. And again, quadratics are going to be something like ax squared plus bx plus c, and because we're solving it, it's going to be equal to 0. One thing about quadratics, just they look like these U's. We call them parabolas. Okay, and what we're solving for is where it crosses that x-axis. Okay, so when we factor, we're finding the two places where it crossed. Okay, so we could technically have two answers. It could only hit once. We'd get one answer, so two answers, one answer. And then technically, we could get something like this, where the quadratic doesn't cross the x-axis, so this one has no answers. Okay, most of the problems I'm giving you guys, if not all, will have two answers, but I want you to be aware that if you're ever dealing with using the quadratic formula and you don't get an answer, or you only get one answer, that's okay. It just tells me that when I graph this equation, then it's not necessarily hitting the x-axis more than once. Okay. Sorry, this is really blurry. So, what we're going to do is we're actually going to solve these, and it makes me kind of sad you guys aren't here, because normally we would sing a song together that's so much fun and everybody loves it. So you guys just get to listen to it. So, and you might have already heard it before, but here we go.
X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Okay. So, I don't know if you guys sung that before, but it's usually sung to Pop Goes the Weasel. So, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So right here, this is our quadratic formula. This formula is going to work no matter what, as long as it's a quadratic, meaning it has an x squared. So we're going to go through the steps to get down to where we actually start plugging it in. So we've got our two examples. In step 1, we're going to make sure it's rewritten in this standard form: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. The a, the b, the c are just the numbers. So a right here is 3, b is 5, c is negative 12. So our first one is actually already set up, okay? But that's always our step 1. Rewrite it so it looks like this. Step 2, locate and identify your a, b, and c values. So a is always with x squared, so a is 3, just the 3. The x's tell us what letter we're going to deal with. B is always with x, is 5. And c is always by itself. It's the one without any letters. It's negative 12. Okay? Step 3. Wow, we're cruising. Step 3, we're going to substitute it in. So x equals negative, then our b value, 5, plus or minus. Okay, this plus or minus we'll talk about in a second, but because there's two answers, this plus or minus is where those are going to come in. The square root, okay, b is 5, squared minus 4 times a times c the whole thing is going to be divided by 2 times a. Okay, and we're just going to take this one step at a time. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root 5 squared. Well, 5 times 5 is 25 minus, and then let's do 4 times 3 times negative 12 all over, and then we could go ahead and do 2 times 3 is 6. So we have x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root. Let's go ahead in our calculator. We're just going to type this all in at once. We're going to go 25 minus 4 times 3 times negative 12. Make sure you use your negative button. I don't know what type of calculators you have, but it should be just like this. Enter. So we get 169 over 6. I way overdrew that. Okay, so then let's do the square root. Okay, so from here I'm actually going to write it. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 169 over 6. What we're going to do is, my things are a little goofy, is this should have been swapped. Kinda. It's a little weird. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to split the two equations. So this part right here, sorry, I did not even realize I did that, goes up, and then step 5 is solve for both. So we're going to split this up. We'll have x equals negative 5 plus the square root of 169 over 6, and then x equals negative 5, and we already used the plus, so now we're going to do minus square root 169 over 6. Okay, we're going to actually solve these. So x equals negative 5 plus the square root of 69 over 6. In our calculator, we're going to go negative 5 plus the square root of 169. So x equals 8 over 6. And we know 8/6 is going to reduce to 4/3. Okay? I don't know if you saw that in my calculator. On the next one, x equals negative 5 minus the square root of 169 over 6. I'm just going to type the top part in my calculator. Negative 5 minus the square root of 169. That's going to give me x equals negative 18 over 6. And then if we want to, we could simplify that. So I know 2 goes into both. That would be, oh, not 2, let's go with 3, right? 18 divided by 3 is 6. And then 6 divided by 3 is 2. Oh, and we could go one further. So x equals negative 3. So my two answers are going to be x equals, oh my goodness, you can't even see that. X equals 4/3 and x equals negative 3. Okay. Let's do another one. Okay. Back to the beginning. First step, rewrite your equation in standard form. So this one, we have x squared minus 4x equals 12. Well, we want plus or minus z equals 0. We want this equal to 0, so we're going to minus the 12 over. So x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. So now I have it in order. Okay, so my a is with my x squared. What's here with my x squared? It's not written, but technically it is a 1. Okay, my b is with x, that's negative 4. C is all by itself, negative 12. It's equal to 0. We're good. Okay, we're going to plug it in. x equals negative and then negative 4. So this negative right here is always there. We just always write it down and then plug in b minus the square, plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. And we're just plugging in a, b, and c into our equation. So x equals, I have a double negative. Negative negative 4 is positive 4 plus or minus. Negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And then minus 4 times 1 times negative 12 all over 2 times 1 is 2. So x equals 4 plus or minus 16. And this time I'm going to do a little bit different. I'm going to say negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times negative 12. So negative 4 times negative 12, that's a positive 48. So x equals 4 plus or minus, and then I have 48 plus 16, or 16 plus 48, we know it doesn't matter, is 64. Okay. Do we know what the square root of 64 is? We do. We actually know it's 8. But I'm just going to leave it as is right now. So write our two equations. So x equals 4 plus the square root of 64 over 2, and x equals 4 minus the square root of 64 over 2. So x equals 4, and then we know the square root of 64 is 8, plus 8 divided by 2. X equals, what's 4 plus 8? That's 12 divided by 2, so x equals 6. So x equals 4 minus 8 divided by 2. X equals negative 4 divided by 2. X equals negative 2. Okay, I have you guys, write it this way, and you could actually just type this right into your calculator, or you could type in the top part and then divide by the bottom. They're not always going to come out nice numbers. Sometimes you're going to get decimals. When you get decimals, just round it a little bit. And that is our last new thing we're learning, is solving using the quadratic formula. Okay, so I hope you have a great day.